Welcome to the Living Spiritfully podcast, Heart to Heart edition. Here's your host for today, Paul Galloro.
Welcome to the Heart to Heart edition of the Living Spiritfully podcast. It's me, your host, Paul Galloro, and I'm so thrilled for my guest today. He and I we met through our mutual friend, Claudia Micco, and everyone, you all know Claudia, as the co-host of the Mind Body Misfits episodes of the Living Spiritfully podcast with me. But Carl Powell is an influencer, motivational speaker, and author that's creating gentle, restorative, obtainable wellness experience for the 50-plus crowd. He's currently based in Hawaii, and Carl is teaching on Zoom through his online portal called Grow with Carl. Now, as I mentioned, we met through Claudia Micco at one of the events that Carl has produced. Actually, we worked two events together. Carl produced Mindful Movement Marathon and the Mindful Movement Melody, both virtual events that featured fitness professionals and meditation teachers from around the globe, which was super exciting to be part of. Carl, I am so thrilled to be here having this conversation with you today. Welcome to the show, Carl.
Well, thank you so much. I was excited all weekend. I was like, oh, I'm going to talk to Paul on Monday. Let me get myself together. So I taught my classes and got myself all together. And here I am.
I have to say, I love the shirt that you're wearing. And listeners, I'm going to, I want you to see this shirt. So I'm going to post a video of this on social so you can see a clip. Gorgeous. It's like silk with flowers on it. These blue, we're both wearing blue today because, you know, we're soulmates and we got the memo. So you look amazing. Carl, welcome. Thank you for coming. So where in Hawaii are you? You're on Maui with Claudia?
Yeah, I'm on the island of Maui. Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. I love it.
Which I love and wouldn't be any other place in the world. Maui, I tried to leave once. I moved back to the East Coast. I thought, okay, I got my share of Maui. I got my fill, and absolutely not. 10 years later, I was packing my bags and I was right back. So.
Well, I mean, we've chatted before. I've seen the place where you are right now. I'm even looking. You've got these gorgeous palm trees that are just like swaying in the background, like it's paradise, right? I haven't made it to Maui yet, but when I do, I'm coming out for a visit.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, Carl, the question that I ask all our guests to kick off our conversation: how is your heart?
How is my heart? Divided, extremely divided. I'm sure that would be the answer for a lot of people. But right now, I'm at a crossroad, an interesting crossroad, but it's still a place where I really have to stop, ponder, and consider, where am I going from here? I'll preface it. My mother and my brother both passed away within the last 7 months. And my younger brother, he and I were super close. And my mother and I, we had the same kind of relationship. So now that they're not here, I have to decide, what do I do from here? Who am I from here? Because now I'm the only person left in my family. So now who am I now? How do I navigate this new part of my life? So my heart is divided. There's part of me that's very sad. Of course, it's very sad and I'm grieving. And then there's the biggest part of me that is so grateful, because my mother and brother gave me more than I could have ever expected in one lifetime. They were both my biggest fans and my biggest critics. You know, do something right, they're right there for you, but don't step to the left, because they're like, I don't like that step. You know, so it was good to have them as a balancing for myself. So I'm going to miss the balancing, but I will always carry with me the love and all of the wisdom that I was able to take in. So I guess I'm just going to have to embrace it as this is a new road. I'm going to take the wisdom and all of my flow with me, and then do whatever I can that I know would make my mother and brother proud and happy, and kind of stay off that left side where they would tell me off.
Wow. Well, first off, and I remember when both of those happened in such a close time to one another. So I've been holding you in my heart this entire time. And I can't even imagine what that would be like.
Mhm.
Well, um, without, I mean, you speak to it as much as you'd like, but like, actually, the real question that I want to ask, so I'm not even going to dance around it. Do you still feel them like energetically? Do you feel their presence, or like, have they come to you in dreams or anything? Do you know what I'm saying?
I'll tell you, right before my mother passed away, I had a dream. And I'll start from the beginning. Every year, because I've always lived other places in the world, but every year for 1 week, I would go back to see my mother and my brother, and we would go on a road trip. And every year on the road trip, they would argue and bicker, and they would make me drive, which, if you know anything about me, I hate to drive ever. But they would make me drive, and I would be so irritated that I was driving, and they were arguing, and it drove me crazy. And I had a dream that we were on one of those trips and I'm driving in my Fury and I get out to get gas because I always have to do everything. And I get out, go pay for the gas, come back, and my brother was in the driver's seat. And they said to me, "This is as far as you get to go with us." And they drove away.
Whoa.
And I think that's what it meant. You know, it meant just what it meant, that that's as far as I got to go. So I know that they knew that it was time for us to divide and move into different directions. And that's always going to happen. I will always have their love. I will always feel them near me. I will always have so many moments when, you know, I remember when my brother said this or how my mother said that. There will always be things that I say. I know my mother always taught me to open doors for women and do this and treat people this way and always have people treat people with respect and treat people the way that you want to be treated. So I always have those things to carry with me. And I think that that is the most important thing about life and legacy, is that
Mm.
you leave people with things that they carry with them. I don't have to be there anymore. If I give you all of the gifts that I have, then I don't have to be there anymore to carry you through. You have it all. And I feel like they gave me all of the gifts that I needed. And now they were telling me, now you're on your own and you have to figure this out.
Wow. That's,
Mm.
you said that was just before your mom passed?
Yeah, just
You
before
had that
I
dream?
knew she had dementia. So she
Okay.
was in hospice. So I knew she was on her way out.
Right.
And, you know,
Wow.
mm, mm,
That's some pretty, like, whoa. I don't
yeah.
have any words to describe that, but like when something like that happens, like, doesn't that to me, that's a reminder of how like we are so connected beyond this physical world.
We're
You know what I mean?
exactly right. And
Yeah.
we're so connected to this, and we're afraid of losing this. So it's our
Mhm.
own mortality that we're thinking about. You know, we hold on really tight. But through this process, I'm letting go a little bit of that and realizing that I'm only here for a certain period of time myself. So I'm only going to go so far down the road myself. And
Mhm.
what I need to do is what they kind of left me with was carry all of this with you and you'll be just fine. So I want to make sure that all of the
Mhm.
people who I love and hold dear to me have what I know and what I feel and what I've learned, share it with them. So then they'll have that to carry with them. And then I will always be present because I will be.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mm.
All that you just kind of described there, of having the things that they've taught you and then sharing that,
Mm.
and that even though they're not there with you, you still have all of those pieces of them. As you were speaking that, I kind of think of myself as a fitness instructor, and I'm also
Mm.
just my experience of experiencing you as a fitness instructor. Is
Mm.
that something that guides your teaching? That idea
Mm.
of I'm here to do this thing with you, but I'm imparting this knowledge on you, so you then take it with you and integrate it into your life beyond this 60 minutes that we're spending together today.
Mm. I think the universe always has put me in that position. I'm one of those people from the very first fitness business I had, I was the boss. And so I was always given the responsibility of controlling a mad pack of aerobic instructors who never could find their records, if you know what I mean. to educating them and leaving them with something they'll carry with them.
Mm-hmm.
My blessing is that I was at Gold's Gym 36 years ago when I left. But to this day, there are still instructors out there who write me messages and say, I still carry with me what you taught me, what you gave me, what you showed me. And that's what legacy is about. Legacy is
Mm-hmm.
not about people telling you it even. I love you so much. You're so wonderful. That's ego. That's not legacy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And people get that confused. People think, oh, if people love me and give me a lot of adoration, then I must. No, that's not legacy, because they'll forget about that when you're gone. What are you going to leave them with when you're no longer there to say it for yourself?
Mm-hmm. What you were just saying about some of the instructors that reached out to you on your website, I love your testimonials page. There's one from a woman that said, I think it was a woman, said that they were doing your fitness classes in the 80s in San Francisco at Gold's Gym. And now they're working with you online in their 80s. That is amazing to me. What's that like? Sorry, go on.
What's that like? What an amazing honor it has been to evolve with my clientele.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of Zoom was it gave me the ability now to go back to all of those corners where I touched and find the people who I touched the most who still want to be touched.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to that, I either had to pick myself up, pack a bag, and go and touch you, which was a lot of energy. And of course, I loved it. It was wonderful. Traveling was the best thing that ever happened to me, period. But there is a time and a place to sit your ass down and just be.
Mm-hmm.
and it's called 63, which I just turned this weekend.
What? Wait, it was your birthday this weekend?
Yes.
Happy belated. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, first of all, you're amazing, and keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that what you do and what you teach and all of the things that I teach are all of the things that I believe closest to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm teaching you those things, that's the reason why I quit presenting. A lot of people ask me, why did you quit presenting? You were at the top of your game. What I was presenting when I was presenting was entertainment. It was dance. It was fun. It was wonderful. But then all of a sudden, I needed to go back and find my own practice. Because in order to then be a leader, I had to have a practice, not something that I learned from you or from Claudia and then bring that back and say, look what I learned in a workshop last weekend. Now let me share it with you. I really had to take that information and make it a practice and decide, where do I fit within this practice? In the beginning, there was yoga and Pilates I was looking at and Tai Chi, and I had to find, what is the middle ground? Where do I fit in this new age world of exercise where I'm no longer doing a step touch and there's no beat? And can I even hold a whole conversation? Because teaching fitness, those types of classes, I wasn't doing anything to say 5, 6, 7. There was no information involved.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I went from teaching that to teaching real information, and I really had to have the information ingrained in myself before I can filter it out, decide what is my own personal view of it, and then bring it back and teach it to you. So when I started to have my own experience and I realized I needed to find my own practice, I immediately stopped presenting and I said, I'm going to take this time out for me to practice so that I can be good enough to teach what I'm learning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That totally resonates with me because in 2018, I stepped away from fitness for a bit. I was presenting at conferences and doing all of that stuff, but something had come to me, and one of the reasons why I closed my studio, I sold my car, I packed up my apartment, and I traveled the world. Where I met Claudia, and we ended up doing a conference together in Australia that year. But one of the reasons why I did it was because I said to myself, Paul, you say to people all the time, trust the universe. It's time for you to do that. So I really had no plan as I went about, but it was that similar idea of I needed to like take it in so that when it was coming out of me, it was coming out not as a regurgitation of something that I read or something that like a workshop that I went to, but it was coming through me from a place of experience.
Mm.
And that I definitely feel that from my experiences of taking your classes, watching your videos, listening to your conversations. So how has your teaching style? I mean, you talked about the 5, 6, 7, 8 to now sharing
Mm.
more,
Mm.
having more of a dialogue. But how
Mm.
else has your teaching shifted since those days of Step Touch?
Be- Becoming a healer and realizing what healing entails changes everything. It changes the entire game, because
Mm-hmm.
it changed it from me trying to figure out what I need to teach you for the day, and just let you come in and I can look at you and I can tell you, oh, this is what we're doing today, because I see you, I feel your energy, and now we're going to work from here. When I was teaching fitness, I would go home and I would design choreography in my living room. And then when I got to the studio, I expected everyone to perform that no matter what kind of mood they were in, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what they had encountered that day. I
Right.
didn't consider, did she fall down in the subway? Is she feeling okay? She made it. She has her tennis shoes on. It must be time to go.
Mm-hmm.
Where it is completely different. I'm going to share an experience that I just had this weekend it was an eye opener. It was frightening, but it also made me realize the importance of the power that I've been able to pull together. I had a client come in and she walked in, she went over to the table to put her things down. And before she even turned around, I felt something was wrong. So before she even turned around and we made eye contact, I said to her, "What's wrong?" And she turned around and she started bawling immediately. And she said, "You really know me, don't you?" She said, "Because I was planning on coming in here and smiling through this session and then going home and allowing myself to feel the way that I felt." And I said, "Well, that's the reason why you came here, is to feel the
Right.
way that you felt." And very sad story. Her son was missing. The second that she told me, my entire being said, bad news, bad
Mm-hmm.
news. But I'm just learning how to relay the messages that are coming to me clearer than they were before. Before I was clear, the messages that I got weren't as clear. But
Mm.
as I reach my own clarity, get closer to my own heart, to my own self, then what I feel from other people is clearer. And of course, you don't jump up. I don't even know what to say in that situation when it came to me. I just sat there and I listened, because that's what my job is.
Mm-hmm.
And she left and she was fine. But then I found out the day later that he had passed away. They found him in his car.
Oh.
And again, my heart sank. But my heart sank the second time or the third time, just because, boy, that feeling was so strong. And I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. And I realized that my power is getting stronger, but so is my responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
As my power increases and I can read things better, I have to be really careful about how I share that information, how I filter that information, which is so different than 5, 6, 7, go right. You know what I mean? It's a whole
Yeah.
different shuffle. So
Yeah.
it go
Yeah, no,
ahead.
I was just gonna say that is so profound, I think, to be able to feel something like that just in someone's
Mm,
presence, to pick up
mm,
on, their emotions and the way they're feeling. That can't be easy on you
mm,
physically, mentally, or emotionally. I can't imagine.
mm. Yeah, and
Um,
I start the clearer you get, the clearer and more those kind of things come up. And
mhm.
right now, I'm still just learning how to bring them in, and without letting it break your heart. Because my emotion was, when that feeling hit me, I wanted to cry, but of course that wouldn't have helped anybody in the situation.
Right.
So I had to really consider, okay, ooh, what do I do here? um,
Yeah.
but I'm enjoying the learning experience, and I'm proud that I'm understanding the how precious the power is, and how you have to really be careful with how I move from here,
Hmm.
because I know more, I feel more, but sometimes you can't say more.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because people are
Yeah.
on their journey and they need to sometimes,
Yeah.
discover those
Right.
things on their own.
Hmm.
But I heard you say a couple of times, and this is like, I love that we speak the same language. But you were saying about I had to get clear in myself. What what have you done? What has that journey been to get clear?
To get clear, the first thing I had to do was stop trying to be everything for everyone.
Mm,
This industry has a way of putting you in a box where everybody feels comfortable with you. And
hmm.
if you step outside of that box, all of a sudden you realize people aren't quite as comfortable with that. And so I think the first part of my learning in this journey was when I stepped out of the box and said, look, I want to do something different. People, they almost didn't have faith that I could, like, you belong in this box. Don't get out. What, are you crazy? And I said, I can't stay in this box my whole life. I can't do that. Some people do, and some people are fine with it. I personally could not.
Hmm.
So as I started to grow out of that, then I realized with yoga, that was the first layer of my onion, because I had never sat down and tried to meditate. And, I
Right.
was like, hip hop, I am not thinking about stopping and pausing. What are you talking about? So the first time I went to a meditation class, I literally had to zone out because it just nothing came in.
Wow.
But that was my own block, it was me.
Hmm.
Uh, so I realized when nothing came in and everyone else had an experience, I said, okay, it can't just be me. I mean, it can't just be them. It has to be me. I started opening myself up to more things. As I became more open, I started trying more things. But when you are the presenter, or the educator, you don't have the opportunity to step out and make mistakes. Really, you just
Hmm.
don't.
Hmm.
And so I really had to completely remove myself from that role and just to let myself be a child, allow myself to make mistakes and fall down in front of everyone, which was not my style, because I was so used to being at the top of my game. And the
Right.
top of my game says Carl doesn't do anything wrong. Um, Dropping that and just allowing myself, but opening myself up like that, it opened up so many more doors. The more doors I opened, the more doors I saw there were to open. And as I opened those doors, I realized, boy, when I look back, that's the first time I realized how far I was from who I was before.
Hmm.
I was just opening doors, and don't all of a sudden I turned around and thought, oh my God, that other Carl's way back there. I'm not even him anymore.
Yeah.
No.
Wow.
So I had to go all the way back to the beginning to move all the way forward to then turn around and realize, oh, I'm in a new space, and it's okay. And it's okay. It's okay to be this, and it's okay not to be that. I was afraid of dropping that, because that he supported me. He got me around the world. He got me applause and adoration. He gave me a lot, but it was time to let him go.
Mm-hmm.
and that's just the same way with death. Just the same. It's
Right.
hard sometimes. Sometimes you have to let that go so that you can grow. It's the only
Yeah.
way you're going to grow is when that's gone. It's like,
Right.
as long as you have that training wheel, you're never going to learn how to really ride a bike, are you?
Right.
So sometimes someone has to rip that training wheel off, and then you think, oh, now I'm riding.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how I feel. That's what I feel like right now. It's like, now I'm on the ride. Okay, I got this. Um, it's like the training wheels are off.
Yeah. Wow. Carl, as we're sitting here having this conversation, I'm so thrilled because I feel like I'm listening to a lot of your experience, and I'm like,
Mm,
whoa, I had a similar experience, and I thought,
mm,
I don't know if you had this too. When you're going through it, you're like, I'm the only one that's going through this. Nobody else understands. And now I'm talking to you. I'm
mm.
like, oh my gosh, there's a gazillion questions I want to ask because I'm like, oh my God, what do I do about this? And what do I do about that? But it seems like, I mean, growth, it's in your name, right? Grow with Carl.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that, it's not just like, oh, hey, come and do this. This is a catchy thing. Like that
Mm,
is you. Like you've grown in so many
mm,
ways and evolved in so
mm,
many ways in your personal
mm,
life. And now that just seems like that is an extension of you in the work that you're doing with others.
mm. And everything happens for a reason. It comes to you for a reason. The whole thing with growth was the pandemic happened. And all of a sudden I didn't have anything to do. And so my partner and I, we went to Lowe's one day and we looked at a couple of plants and we got 4 or 5 plants. We said, oh, let's spruce up the yard. We have nothing else to do. And the next day I said, well, let's go back and get 3 or 4 more plants. And before I knew it, I had hundreds. And I created this garden, which I had never, honest to God, put my hands in dirt to play with a plant before in my life. If I had a plant in my house, it was, it was plastic. I was not dealing with watering them. What kind of sun do they need? It just was never an interest of mine. And all of a sudden I started to realize, oh, when I give my attention to these things grow. And then it became a metaphor for everything in my life, that when I started giving more attention to what I wanted instead of what I didn't want. When you spend a whole lot of time on what you don't want, you forget to spend the time on what exactly it is that you want. So watching the plants grow, that's where that whole Grow with Carl came from, because all of a sudden but the plants were helping me grow inside. And it was a miracle to me because I had never even considered. I saw people do gardening shows before. I'd be like, that looks boring. You have to get dirty to do that. I'm not doing that. But everything comes to you when it's the proper time. And that's what growth is. Growth comes to you right at the right time, but you have to be rooted in order to grow. And until you sink your roots into what it is, whatever the soil you want to grow in, then you're gonna die. You're gonna die and wilt and die and wilt and die and wilt until this is what I want, put my roots in and set my intention. Then growth is gonna happen. So I learned a whole lot from the plants.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm learning so much just from what you just said in that, because I feel like, again, you're saying all the things that I need to be hearing at this point in my life right now. But okay, so because I consider myself a farmer. Actually, today I posted on the Instagram a zucchini that just grew out of it was a surprise. I went to go check my garden. All of a sudden, there was this giant zucchini there. But I've seen so many lessons just from like tending to plants. What would you say is one of the like you never realize this rooting thing? I love this analogy of, you can't really grow until you root yourself. But what other kind of lessons have you learned from working with plants that are applicable to life?
Okay, so this is the most exciting thing that I've done in years. It came from the growth inspiration. And so my brother passed away and I was sad and I was thinking, what could I do to honor him? My brother was a transvestite. So his born name was Timmy and his chosen name was Tracy. So I decided I was going to write a children's book. So I wrote a children's book where the character's name is Tim Tracy. And it's about a little boy who can't find happiness. So what happens to him, the book should be done like by the end of the week. So I'm real excited right now. He finds an envelope of seeds, and the seeds are gratitude, love, kindness, courage. And so he has this packet of seeds, and the note says, plant one of these every day and watch happiness grow. And so the first seed he plants is gratitude, and he plants the gratitude, and he realizes that when he goes out and waters it, all of a sudden his gratitude has grown. And now he's more grateful for things. And then the next day he goes out and he plants love, and his love grows. So instead of focusing on all the things that he didn't like, his focus changed to, oh, these are all the things that I do like. And his love grew. And so he goes all through the 7 seeds and he ends up with a garden of happiness. So that's what I've learned from the plants. I really know that you get to choose your own plants and you get to tend to your own garden. And whatever plants are in your garden, you put them there, or they were weeds that you allowed to grow. People who get in these relationships and they're like, I don't know how to get in my life. No, it was a weed that you let climb into your house, and now it got you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you've got to be careful with how you tend to your garden.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and see, and this is why I think like a daily practice of some sort, that's tending, actually Janet Jackson in her Velvet Rope album, she says we have to tend to our spiritual garden.
Mhm.
And that to me is what that daily practice is. It's one of the reasons why I created the Arise program, so that there is this place for people to go every day to do that tending to the spiritual garden. What's your daily tending to your spiritual garden? What does that look like?
Mhm. Well, the first thing I do is I share. So I have a class that I teach Monday through Saturday at 8 a.m. Same group of people. Most of them I've had 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years.
Wow.
Uh, the first part is we turn on the microphone, we turned on Zoom. In the first 10 minutes of class, we just talk. What's the weather like? What did you learn? How's your husband feeling? How's your knee? What do you? And everybody just talk. So they have 10 minutes just to talk and say what. So that is socialization. So the first thing that we
Mhm.
do is we socialize. Then we come in and then we start to work on our breath work, and we start to get rooted into our day. So you're rooting into your day and you're breathing, you're getting connected with yourself. And then we choose some form of exercise, whether it's core exercise or some simple, easy weightlifting for strength and balance or Qigong. And we say, okay, today's class is going to be Qigong. We go from our breath work, we decide exactly what that is going to be, and then we go from there. Um, Alicia, no, my
No,
phone
I'm
was ringing.
sorry.
um, so they go from there. So we say, today we're going to do Qigong. We even kind of talk about it. How's everyone feeling? If people say, I'm really tired, of course, we can bring that down a little bit. The great thing about them being a group is if Linda's arm hurts, everyone's saying, okay, well, let's do it for Linda and make sure her arm doesn't really hurt. And so they all pull together and they decide what they want.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I love that they decide, we kind of decide together. And then all I do is I just go inside and give them what they want. Like I said before, I always had a formula. This is what I'm going to teach today. I don't decide that till I see who's in class and how they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Because that makes a huge difference in what they leave with.
Right.
I've said this from the beginning of time. Often, a class is the only thing a person starts and finishes in their day. So let's leave them feeling as successful as possible in that. They start washing their clothes, that's never done. They start ironing their clothes, that's never done. They start sweeping the floor, that's never done. Class is in, done, check. I
Mm-hmm.
want to feel good in between that check. So that's my goal is just to let them check off. I took self-care today and did it with pleasure, did it, yeah, check, done. So that's the goal of the program. The goal of the program is to allow people to grow as they feel. I say grow where you're planted so people can be anywhere in the world and we can all sit here and grow together,
Mm-hmm.
which I love. And I love there there's a lot of conversation right now about loneliness. And the world, we especially since the pandemic, people have gotten lonelier.
Mm-hmm.
And human connection is so important. But this kind of connection is fabulous
Mm-hmm.
because it allows you to, one, now we have more time to spend together, don't we? Because I didn't have to drive where you were or park or walk. No, we're right here. So I can say, I'm going to talk to Paul for an hour. That's going to be part of my self-care for the day. And 1 hour we sit down and we talk. So I love the Zoom experience. I don't care what
Mm-hmm.
anyone says. Yeah, it's been revolutionary and it has made my ability to share my work so much more than I ever imagined.
Right.
I love being able to get on, and I have clients in Germany and I get to see them. What's the weather like? This is great. I get to practice my German a little bit. It's terrible, but but after all that time, it is terrible. So yeah, I've been
Yeah.
here 25. I've been back 25 years. That's a long time to remember, a
Right.
language.
Yeah.
But
Because you lived in Germany, right, with Claudia?
I was there 7 years, so I was there for a long time, and then I got a gig that I needed her to come and work with me. So then she came and she stayed for the last 2 years that I was there. So
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I'm sure you have some like scandalous stories about Claudia Micco that you need to share with me. We'll do it once once the recording's done. Claudia, I know you're listening, and she's probably cringing. But
uh,
yeah.
I've known Claudia. I've known Claudia all of her adult life, and that's one of my biggest treasures is being able to say I sat back and watched her grow. Um,
Mm,
Seeing grow just keeps coming up, doesn't it?
yeah.
She came to me. She was a little girl. I think she was 18, 19, 20 years old. Bouncy, too bouncy for her own good. If you think she's bouncy now, imagine that energy at 20. And just seeing her develop and grow. And those are all those little landmarks that let you know you lived yourself.
Hmm.
We did this. We went there. Look how much you've grown there. Watching each other get wrinkles and get older. Interesting because we were so young. That was the last thing we ever thought about. Was one day we'd be sitting around looking at each other, counting each other's wrinkles.
Oh, that's got to be fun.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So no, it's life growth is everything is about growth.
Yes. Now, there's some things that I have these conversations with Jackie Talley. Are you familiar with Jackie Talley?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So
We know each other, of course.
yeah. So Jackie's a co-host on the podcast as well. So her episode will air next week. But she and I always have these conversations about like the evolution of fitness and how the industry has changed since the 80s. Now, I would watch those like the 20-minute workout with Bess and her hair is flailing all over the place, with those curls bouncing and the leotard and all of that. So I was watching that, but like Jackie was there, you were there. I sent Claudia an Instagram, something about the crystal light days of like the competitions or whatever that were happening back then. Like, so like you were there. And then the industry evolved, and now it's where we are. What has that evolution been like? What have you seen? What do you miss? What are you so glad is now here that maybe wasn't there before? What's that like?
Okay. Being someone who watched the industry go from an infant to where it is today, I love a lot of things. I love a lot of things about the way things were. What were great about fitness conventions in the beginning, we were a bunch of people really coming around with very little ego and a whole lot of ideas. And that's where the idea thing came up in the first place. We were just a whole bunch of people with a whole bunch of ideas that we wanted to share, and we wanted our industry to grow. In the course of that came Crystal Light. And so it changed our industry from where we were trying to be educators and really serious to almost cheerleading.
Mm.
So in the beginning, I don't know if anyone's willing to say this, but I am, because what you gonna do?
Spill the tea, girl. Spill the tea.
In the beginning, there were the educators, and then there were the competitors, and we weren't the same people, not at all. So a lot of times, if somebody came in and they said, "Oh, I'm a competitor," we were like, "Well, they're not educated," because we were different people. I love that in the course of time that we have evolved, and I think that that's kind of blended in. So people still kept a little bit of the cheerleader, but kept a whole lot of the education, and so it was able to intermingle and become an industry.
Mm-hmm.
Because for a while there, we thought it was going to split. They wanted to take competitive aerobics to the Olympics.
Oh.
Which would have taken it completely out of our realm, really.
Right.
But because of the powers that be and money, they didn't want to, Suzuki and Reebok and all those people, they wanted to keep that in fitness. And so the competition to, do we go to the Olympics, which I thought would have been stellar for the fitness business, but not everyone saw it that way. So I saw how the business went from cheerleaders and educators to being more cohesive instructors and actually being really concerned about their education and growth. I'm not so crazy about programs. I'm just going to say it out loud. I liked that. I really went through paces to learn kinesiology and physics, all those things, so that I had all of the elements it took to know exactly what I needed to teach.
Mm-hmm.
Not that somebody gave me a book and said, okay, in a weekend, I'm going to teach you all of these things lightly, and then now you're a teacher, here you go. We didn't have that back then.
Mm-hmm.
We had to think for ourselves. No one gave us our choreography. Here's your choreography, here you go. They gave you a record and a notepad, and they said, here you go. Go figure it
Figure
out.
it out. Yeah.
Yeah. But it lended to a lot more creativity, and you had to really increase your knowledge and able to make an informed decision on what you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were serious in the business, when you did a push-up, you watched everybody else and made sure that everyone, you really cleaned up your push-ups and made sure your form was right, because we were in a business where people were educated and they knew better. Even the students were getting to a point where they would say, that's not the way I did it yesterday. I mean, they were telling you if you didn't know.
Right.
If I had some of my students go to other people's classes and say, Carl said never do that. You know what I mean? So students
Yeah.
were getting real educated too. Uh,
Right.
but then I don't really know, because I can't, it's been 20 years since I've been to a fitness convention.
Mm.
So, I only know what I see from Facebook. And
Okay.
what I see, it isn't what it was. Sometimes I'm curious. Sometimes I look and I think, oh, I'd really like to be a fly on the wall and see all of this stuff. But then I realized that people would see me, and then I would have to be there.
And then everyone's going to be talking about Carl, and
not a bad thing at all. But I'm just saying, of course I'm not. But yeah, I would like to see. Sometimes I see programs and I think, oh, this is interesting. But then a lot of times I see people trying to do programs just to sell a product, and
Mhm.
then that's really distracting to me.
Right.
So I see some good growth and I see some negative growth in the industry. I like that it still remains an industry and that there are people still out there who want to try to educate and teach each other and grow as an industry. I wish the industry had a little bit more support. I wish the medical field would support
Mm.
the wellness industry more, because without there's no wellness illness. They're sisters, and they
Mhm.
have to live in the same environment. They just do.
Mhm.
But if you're just paying for sickness, then you're not getting any wellness.
Right.
And if you're only investing your money in your wellness, but then you get sick, you know what I mean? So I wish
Yeah.
that those industries were a little bit closer so that we had a closer understanding of each other. So
Yes.
often one of my clients goes to the doctor and they hurt their knee, and the doctor said, well, don't do Pilates. But it's not even what I do. So you haven't seen what I do, yet
Mhm.
you're telling people not to do it, or that it's not good for them in their situation. So I
Right.
wish that there was more communication in the field to let people know that just because you're strengthening your core doesn't mean that you're doing jumping jacks.
Right.
But a lot of people in the medical profession don't know the difference between a Zumba class and a yoga class. They just don't,
Mhm.
unfortunately. So
Yeah.
if someone says, I'm going to exercise, the first thing they'll tell them is don't exercise, which
Right.
is not always the best thing for them.
Right.
So, yeah.
With that though, do you think that it has a lot to do with just like people's perceptions of what fitness and exercise is? Because like an example, I started teaching. So I moved I was living just north of the city before, and so there was a lot more clubs around that I was teaching at, and
Mm.
the whole environment was different. I move an hour north of the city, and this club that I'm teaching at, and anybody that's listening, I say this with love. I felt like I was stepping into the club that I taught at 15 years ago. Like the
Uh-huh.
mentality was still the same with that go hard or go home, sweat is
Mm.
just fat cells crying, all of that stuff that, we said at some point, but it's like,
Yeah.
now most of us are like, I don't know, for me anyway, I don't get off on beating the shit out of my body and calling it
Right.
exercise, right? So I then go into
Exactly
that
right.
club and I'm like, all right, we're just going to move however it feels good. And I'm bringing in the yoga
Yeah.
and even like, so it was a strange kind of thing for me to go in there and be like, whoa, I felt like I went back in this like time warp. And I don't remember where I was going with this statement now. So here we are. And just like
So,
that, the conversation ended.
well, yeah, exactly. Well, being in more rural areas opposed to being in big cities, people in big cities, they're more apt to know the latest trends.
Hmm.
Where people who are more rural, maybe not, they may not get that information for, look how long it took yoga to move from the yoga studio to the fitness studio.
Right.
And for people to really even consider. I
Hmm.
mean, when we began to teach yoga, people looked at us like we must be out of our minds. Are you crazy? I still want to jump up and down. The funny part about that is the same people who said that to me now are 75 and now they want to do yoga.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, so I know I did the right thing because at least by the time they were ready, at least I was ready to teach them. If I just would have
Yeah.
stayed in fitness with them, I wouldn't have been ready to teach them when they were ready to learn.
Right.
So now I feel like I have the information that I now want to share and that I can use to help people heal and feel better. And
Hmm.
it's all about growth, just learning that growth is what it's about, physically, mentally, spiritually, always growing, not saying, okay, this is enough. You know what I mean? Like, no,
Right.
that's not enough because there's always room to grow. And a lot of people in their life, they get to enough. A lot of people don't ever root, and so they can't ever grow. But it's so important that when you start to realize, until I put my intention on growth, how do I grow forward? What am I going to do? When you start to root yourself and do those things, you start making better, clearer decisions. And when you start making better, clearer decisions, you start having better, clearer results. And I'm going to tell
Mm-hmm.
anyone who's listening, when you start to focus on you, everything happens from you. This is your movie. You're the only person really in it. All the other characters, they're marionettes, and you're controlling this whole thing. So stop it, stop it. Oh, you're making up this movie all by yourself. Start with you and let everything grow from the inside out. And that's my message for today. Let yourself grow. Yeah, like um,
I I love that. I'm like making note because this is actually the clip that I'm going to be putting on social media so people listen to this episode. Um, that is brilliant. So let me ask you this, because I can spot in some, like I can just listen to somebody, and I'm sure you recognize this
yeah.
too. You could just hear certain words. They're the tiniest words, but you can tell if that person is in a growth mindset or if they're in a lack
Right.
mindset. So I guess this is kind of two questions. What do you see? Like, what are some of the key words that you would encourage somebody to like talk about or use more often to develop a growth mindset? And what other tips do you have to get people to shift out of this like lower vibrational thinking and shift into this growth mindset where everything is possible and you are the creator of those possibilities?
Step number one is get very clear about where you stand today. Where are you today? And then start to look at why. Why am I here? Do I need to be here? And can I grow from here? Because sometimes when your plant's not growing, you just need to move it over to another environment. So sometimes when you're not growing, it's not even you, you're just in the wrong environment to grow. So
Hmm.
you have to start really analyzing where you are, how you treat where you are, because life treats you just like you treat it. That's what Hawaii is about. Everyone respects the energy of the land and the mana. And as long as people treat the land well, the land treats you well in return. And that's what life is. And so when you start to realize that when I start to treat life the way I want to be treated instead of expecting life to treat me in a certain way that gives me more privilege. It's not about that. Nobody has privilege. Nobody leaves here alive. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean? Like exactly. We know from those millionaires and billionaires that went down in that submarine. No matter, you don't get out of it alive. Period. That's just the way life is. So take your adventures and do what you need to do. With people with growth, it's there, it's available. You first have to say to yourself, I can grow. I want to grow. I have the need to grow. And then we'll again examine your environment. Is your environment stopping you from growing? And then maybe you need to change your environment. Then you need to start, how do I take care of myself? Is that stopping me from growing? And really look at your self-care. When you start to do these things, all of the other things start to become so much more apparent to you because you're growing. You see how my hands are going when I say that you're growing, and when you're in growth, you're moving, you're breathing, you're in flow, and getting on the track to the path that was the word I'm looking for. Getting on the path to growth simply means if you take one foot in front of the other and you step onto the path and you let yourself be scared and you let yourself be feel you're alone and in the dark and you don't know what you're doing, and eventually all of the lights will come on. The path will show you everything that you need to see. I watched, this is a real aside, I watched Puss in Boots last night. What was really interesting, I've never, ever, ever watched cartoons, but Ryan likes them. So I'm just going to put this on just to make him happy. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you just want to make someone else happy. So I put it on, but it was interesting. They found a map, but the map, the way to get there was determined by who held the map. So when one character held the map was like a sea of horror, and then everything was terrible. And the other cat, he held it, and it had all these terrible places. But the dog, who was very positive and always was looking at the bright side of things, his was like roses and fairies and unicorns all the way. But it was the same map.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was the same map. And if you think about that, that was so heavy for me because I really had to think, Puss in Boots, you got me on that.
I need to watch this now.
Yeah, I'm telling you, when the map changed, when the people held it, I was like, that's what life is. It's all about how you hold your map and what your mind frame is, what your growth, what your mindset is. If you're in a growth mindset, the second you pick up that map, it's going to tell you you're on your way to growth. And if you're in hell and damnation, it's going to tell you you're going to the sea of hell. It's just the way you handle your map. Thank you, Puss in Boots.
I'm immediately going to go find where I can stream this movie and watch it because I feel like there's many life lessons in there. That is brilliant. And oh my gosh, that's given me so much to reflect on. But it's like, I'm a student of A Course in Miracles, and they always say, heaven or hell, you decide. Like your thoughts are going to either bring you to heaven now or you're going to be in hell. And they also say, this is one of my favorites, we don't get to choose the lessons we're here to learn. We only get to choose if we learn them through joy or through suffering.
Oh.
And what I like about that is like, yes, no matter what's going to happen, life is going to happen. Things are going to come my way. But am I going to, and when I say joy, I don't mean like lollipops and rainbows and skipping down the field with sunflowers singing to me, but like knowing that even in those hard times, I'm learning something out of this. This is happening for me, not to me, that sort of thing.
Exactly, right. It's happening for you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
People, when you get into that, this is happening to me, you're setting yourself up for disappointment, period.
Yeah. Wow. What an amazing conversation. I honestly feel like, we just started, although we're almost close to an hour. But I want to definitely have you back so we can continue this conversation. Before we do, though, is there anything that you want to share before we get into our lightning round questions? Is there anything you feel that your heart hasn't expressed yet that you want to share to me or our listeners, or both?
If I express anything, well, first is gratitude for you asking me to come, because it was wonderful to have this conversation. And I really want to have these conversations because I really want people to have these thoughts to consider, because I know that they'll be helpful. I've spent a lot of time with self-reflection and listening to others so that I could find my path, so I could at least hold your hand and show you this is mine. And it's okay, here's my map. See, it looks good. Yeah. So and I feel grateful. So I'm just in a state of I'm grateful to be here, and I was grateful to have the conversation.
Well, I love you, and I'm so glad that we have this conversation because I mean, you've reflected so much to me that I feel so blessed. So I want to
Oh,
thank you for
well, thank
that.
you.
So our questions, Carl, what makes your heart sing?
Mm. When I see somebody take a long, deep breath, because I
Ah,
know how good, because I know how good that feels.
especially when you could tell when somebody's been holding that breath for so long and then they yeah.
Mm.
I love that.
I love when a client comes in and the first time they just really let go and they make that ugly face and just let the whole breath go, and they even hear it come out of them for the first time and they're like, I did that, and I'm like, yeah, you took your first long deep breath.
It feels good in
It
so
feels
many
good.
ways.
Mm.
What makes your heart heavy?
Discrimination of any form, any kind, not listening to someone else's plight because
Mm,
nobody's right. And it's so often people get their opinion is the only opinion. There are so many opinions and so many stories to listen to. Stay open. Yeah, stay open, people. People tell me black people are this way. How many black people do you know? One, you know what I mean? Like, wait,
mm.
no, it's not like that at all. Take the time to understand the things that you fear the most. And I'm talking about racism and all of those things. If you're afraid of gay people, sit down and find out why that fear is there. If you've got a problem with black people, why? What is the why? What is your why? Because if you can't find your why, then you have a real way to heal.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, Carl, thank you for that because, um, yeah, I don't think I could have ever said that better. And that is something
Mm,
that I think people need to do. We all need to do
yeah.
more of. So
Mm,
thank you for that.
mm.
And finally, our question, where is your heart leading you these days?
To love, to
Mm,
love more, to share more love, to have more understanding. Uh, I love that I've been working with seniors, and I just really, because I know that's where I'm going. So I'm just paving the way for where I'm going because I hope that when I'm an advanced senior, like some of the seniors who I'm helping heal, that there'll be someone to help me heal. So I'm
mm,
just right now, I'm in that phase of my life. I'm working on wholeness. I want to be whole so that I can move. And then when it's time to lift and transcend, I can say, I've left my legacy. I feel whole. And I can be like the leaves on the tree when the fall time comes. You don't hold on to the tree, you just let go and go down. You know what I mean? I want to be like
mm,
a leaf when I go, just like that.
mm. Oh, Carl, I am seriously going to be reflecting on this conversation for a while. I'm going to be unpacking it, and I'm listening to it again and taking tons of notes because there's so much that I want to bring into reflection. Some of these, you were just spitting hot fire on this mic today, and so I want to thank you for that.
I told you I wanted to talk.
I love it. And we're going to do this again. And I think that we need to get together with Claudia and have a conversation, the
Absolutely.
three of us, because
Yeah.
yeah, that is just going to be amazing. I love you so much. Honestly, it's been
I love you
such
too.
an honor and a pleasure to have this time with you. Listeners, check out the show's notes because you're going to find how you can get in touch with Carl there, his website, where you can follow him on the socials. And please check out, you have a wonderful program on your website for people to check out.
Grow with Carl. That's the website, growwithcarl.com. I'm easy. Grow. Keep on growing.
Keep on growing. Carl, thank you so much for sharing your growth, for inspiring growth within all of us. And I love you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Love you too. Love and light, brother.
Thank you.
Spiritfully podcast is a Spiritful production. Executive producer, Paul Galloro. Co-producers, Claudia, Micco, and Catherine Stilo. A big thank you and much love to you, the Living Spiritfully community, for liking, subscribing, sharing, and supporting this podcast.